In this podcast, I'll give you an example of an IRAC and we'll gloss it or label it together. Just a little bit of context for this IRAC. This IRAC deals with adverse possession, which is a process by which land can change ownership if the possessor makes improvements upon the land or possesses it for a certain period of time in general. In this particular memo, adverse possession is the actual, open and notorious, exclusive, hostile, and continuous possession for a 10-year period. Each one of those requirements may be a separate IRAC. So you would go through the analysis, the issue, the rule explanation, the rule application, and the conclusion for each one of those elements. In our particular case, under this discussion, we're really only dealing with whether or not the Neros, our clients, would be likely to prove hostility. So let's take this moment now, if you could turn off the podcast and read through these two paragraphs, trying to determine where the issue is, or the conclusion, the rule explanation, the rule application, and the conclusion. So here you see the issue. The issue here is stated as a conclusion. The Neros will very likely be able to prove hostility through pure mistake because they honestly believe they own the disputed property. So this is the conclusion. In the next sentence, you'll find the rule. A pure mistaken belief is one without conscious doubt. It tells us the rule that we're going to use to apply to our case. If the plaintiffs are aware that they may not own the disputed land, conscious doubt exists, and the plaintiffs cannot prove hostility by pure mistake. Notice that this is multiple sentences. Often the rule can be as long as a paragraph or two, depending on the issue. Ours is very straightforward, so it's only 2 sentences. Next, the writer is going to explain the rule using case law. In Davis, the plaintiffs proved pure mistake by establishing that they had walked the fence line before buying the land, and as a result had honestly and reasonably believed that the fence line was the property boundary. However, a plaintiff who thought the land was all ours but did not know whether the fence was actually the boundary was not able to rely on the pure mistake doctrine. Notice here that we don't lay out the facts, holding, and reasoning. This is more of a condensed explanation. The author chooses to include that information, but to kind of condense that. Note also that we're citing to every case that we're using to explain the rule. We got that rule both from Davis and from Mid-Valley Resources, so we use those cases to explain to the reader where it came from. Next comes the application. We're applying the rule to the Neros' situation. Note that this is the first place that we discuss the Neros facts at all, except in the very opening statement, the issue or the conclusion. That's the only place that you're going to see the Neros facts anywhere in this IRAC. So we begin the application with the Neros case. In the application section, the writer gives us the reasons why the Neros will be able to prove they honestly believed that they own the disputed property. In doing so, it uses an analogy and a disanalogy, or a distinction, to 2 individual cases. The final portion of the IRAC is the C, or the conclusion. The Neros made a reasonable and honest mistake regarding the boundary line. Therefore, the Neros should be able to prove that by their mistake, the possession of the land was hostile. Note that this is a very condensed IRAC. Typically, the IRAC form in our class in the beginning of the semester is much more lengthy in that the explanation, where we're talking about the case law, where we got the rule from, we would introduce facts, holding, and reasoning. And also in the application, there's going to be more arguments on both sides, and we're going to use more case law to apply to our facts. For purposes of this podcast, however, I wanted to fit the entire IRAC on one screen.